The Pedestrian was unlike anything I've played before.
The Pedestrian was fucking awesome.
And to talk with a level designer specifically about this game is really like, I am ready for this. I can't wait to hear all of your observations that I missed. Like, just unload on me.
Oh man, The Pedestrian was such a joy to play. Like, for me, no moment or level lingered on too long. And to kind of take a step back and give a quick lowdown on what The Pedestrian is. The Pedestrian is a puzzle platformer game where you play as the person on the crossing street sign, right? Like if that's like the man or the lady, whatever humanoid silhouette there is, that like crosswalk sign, you are playing as that character, and all the levels are these different like crosswalk type signs that you're sort of jumping across. But the key here is that you're actually connecting these signs. It's not just, oh, I got this big highway sign that I'm jumping across. It's like, no, you actually have like 4 panels of these signs. Some of them have like doorways that lead out. Some of them have ladders. And you now need to like zoom out from the singular sign itself and connect a left door to a right door, connect a bottom ladder to a top ladder. And it has that kind of like Pac-Man effect. At least that's how I first saw it, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm running off the edge of the stage and then I'm coming around to the other side.
Yeah, interesting.
But it's more so like you're following the line that connects, and they don't need to be right next to each other. So you get this like really smooth camera panning between the panels you're like walking through, and it actually follows you, which was another thing I found to be a very smooth like touch to the game, was like, I'm actually pushing along the camera rather than just teleporting to the next thing, which would have been easier, but it would have been less breathtaking, I guess.
Yeah, for anybody listening, I would say if you haven't played this game, just watch a walkthrough of it, just like 5 minutes. I think you'll get a good understanding of the kind of gameplay that this game offers. It's really difficult to describe what's going on because it's unfamiliar. It isn't like a lot of games. I don't think I've ever played a game that allowed you to manipulate the environment like this, except Carto, which is that's the closest that I could get, and that's still a very different style.
Yeah, Carto's still very different. And when you compared it to Carto a few times to me before I had played it, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. But I don't think that primed me at all for this game. Like, I still went in like, what? Whoa. And this game had me doing that so many times. So many times was I like, wow, or like, what the fuck? Or just like, I see what you're putting down and I love it. Like, ooh, this game is my indie darling of 2022, like right now. We'll see if anything can dethrone it.
Yeah, so interesting things that it does. It makes you connect these platforms, right, these signs, and if you break a connection after you've started, then it resets the whole thing. So there's one right way to do it, right? And that gets complicated when they introduce the gaseous element that allows you to kind of keep a certain box intact.
Right, and that's way far down the line. Like, so even your character resets if you've picked up any key items or moved any boxes around in the level and you break a connection after using it. That's kind of the finite line, is like, hey, you could redo these lines as often as you want before you actually traverse them. Once you traverse it, that like sets it in stone. And then, yeah, if you break it to connect it to something else, everything will get reset back to like the start of the level. The street signs themselves, like the pieces of the level, won't reset to their original positions. So that kind of allows you the ability to sort of like theory craft what your connections are going to be and realize like, oh, actually, I shouldn't have connected this door to that door. Let me move this panel over here and like break the connections and restart. And I found that maybe frustrating once or twice, but like, it's a puzzle game, you know, you gotta try some hypotheses and like see which one fails and which one succeeds. The mechanics that get added in at first are like largely just within the level, right? Like it's, here's a locked door. Okay, pick up a key, bring key to locked door. Here's a box. Move the box here, jump on the box, go across somewhere else. And I think switches as well. Like you can walk up to something, hit a button that like flips a switch in the street sign, and then that triggers a thing to like raise a platform, lower a platform, make a platform tangible or intangible. And those are all fun, tried and true mechanics. And then you get to the really cool shit like you're talking about with the gas, this sort of, I don't know what we want to call it. Like I sort of just called it like persistence, like the persistence ability where you can actually like draw a line from this green spray paint type thing and connect it to one of the street signs. And when you break a connection, everything resets except for what is in that street sign. So if you activate a button that's within that street sign and you draw the persistence gas onto it, that switch does not reset when you intentionally break the connections and reset your character and stuff. And it leads in these really cool moments of like, let me flip this switch. Okay, this gate is going to go up. Oh no, if I reset now, which is the only way I can get back there, is by like breaking this ladder connection and drawing it back to the original, then, you know, everything's ruined. Nope, just put the gas on there. Now the bridge is going to be there forever. And you're like leaning into using the level reset as now part of your solution, which was really cool to me. It's almost like, oh, hey, I'm playing Mario. I need to intentionally jump in this pit so that I go back to the beginning of the level after my death, but I've activated the big question mark block in that pit in my death. So it was all part of the plan.
The last mechanic is the electricity. So the signs are gated by like certain bars and things, so that they, you know, normally you press a button and then you step out of the playable character, right? And you're able to manipulate the signs, right? And this is useful. For example, if you're trying to connect one ladder in one signboard to another ladder in a different signboard. So if it's a ladder going down versus a ladder going up, the one that's going down has to be above the one that's going up. So there are times where the positions of the sign are relevant. And if there's a bar in the way, such that the sign can't move, then you have to figure out how to move the bar. And the way that you can do that is by hooking up like an electric switch. Like one of the signs will be infused with electricity. If you can get that to power a bunch of lines, and, you know, it'll activate the switch, the bar will move, and then you'll be able to freely move the signs. Did I explain that well enough, Carlos?
Yeah, I think so. Like, the only thing I would add to kind of clarify is that there are these sort of like fuses on the signs themselves, and you need to link those fuses to these hanging electrical wires or whatever that are in the environment.
Almost like the pipe game, right? Like
exactly, yeah. Like you're taking these section of platformer level and finding which ones. It's like a puzzle on top of a puzzle, because yeah, you can't rotate these street signs in any way. You just need to take them as they are, and sometimes they will have like different sets of connectors on them, right? It'll be like, oh, this one has a connector on the top and on the right, so it's sort of an L shape. This one has it sort of top and bottom but on different corners, so it's more of this like N shape almost like connection. And you're using that to like slot the signs into the right wire that's going to the bar or the piston. And from there, it maybe adds an extra element of like, oh, you need to actually take this electrical wire that is within the sign itself. So this is not an actual physical electrical wire, but this is one of the street sign key items that you pick up, and your character will like put a plug into one part of the street sign and then put a plug into another part, and that like channels the electricity through the street sign back into like the real world and removes a bar. And now getting into the analysis of it, I loved how this game became just more and more a like marriage of like the 2D world and the 3D world.
Oh, dude, yeah. We're going for the final. You're talking about the final level specifically?
No, I'm talking about the game just in general, like us doing the wiring
the
thing.
Signs. Yeah. I see.
So yeah, first it's like, here's a 2D platformer, and then it's like, now you're in 3D world, manipulate the parts of the platforming level, and then, you know, to take it further, you are doing the like persistence thing. So it's like, oh, you're spray painting the sign. That's not happening within the 2D realm. Like, it very much is being this like handoff, this like back and forth of like, I'm doing activity in the 2D, now I'm doing activity in the 3D. And as we get further into the game, that kind of gets bigger and bigger. And just to give another example real quick before we get into the real big stuff, there was the Game Boy that kind of immediately to me indicated how many worlds there were going to be in this game. Like there's a Game Boy object, you grab key items, you basically complete like a series of puzzle levels to eventually get to this key item level, and you have to like drop down the ladder for the Game Boy screen. There's a ladder that's connected from the Game Boy screen to the street sign or something like that. And you crawl down into the Game Boy and you drop off the component into one of the like 7 sockets. And then it immediately pops up in real life on the Game Boy. And I think it's like a fan, a battery, some weird like Game Boy reader light, you know? And like, I thought that was very cute, but it was also like a really cool sort of hint on, I guess, things to come. And lastly, before we get to like the really, really cool stuff at the end, you're jumping on elevators and like into trains. Like you're taking the street signs. In order to get to the next world, you typically have to take these signs that eventually lead you to like a freight elevator. And then you'll put in like the passcode or whatever to continue up to a new floor. Or you'll get into like the conductor's cabin for a subway train and you put in the code, and then the subway train goes and goes and goes, and then it like brings you to your next world. And that part, I think, becomes important when we think about the narrative component. But do we want to discuss like the really sick end of game stuff before we get there?
I want to linger with what we've already touched on, because we've really basically talked about all the mechanics that are introduced in the game, excepting the last like 30 minutes of gameplay. What I want to talk about, you mentioned like a puzzle within a puzzle, right? And I think that is what this game does that's unique, right? Not only is the art style interesting, you're playing as a character on signs. Like I almost think of it like it's like the character, like the like ladies and gentlemen, like mannequins that are on bathroom signs. You know, it's not a stick figure, but that is his body. And I don't know if we have a term for that, the way that we have like a term for stick figure, you know, but
right.
It's impersonal. You know, you see he's a symbol, right? But you play as him. You no longer need a story, right? You know that he's not real. He's just a representation. He's an icon. And that I think is really interesting. And so everything that you're getting out of the game is completely devoid of a story. You don't have to be engaged. And the quest that he's on, you know, to get to the next subway or whatever, the puzzles themselves are all you need to stay engaged. You don't need this like incredible narrative on top of it. But what you do get is setting, right? So it'll be like, oh, now he's in a subway, you know? And so that's kind of fun. And it like stirs up these feelings of like, well, where's he going to go next? But it's not really a he, you know, it's just a concept almost. Yeah. But going back to what you said about puzzle in a puzzle, right? The thing that's fascinating about this is that the puzzles, as you play through, the puzzles get more complex. They build on what you've already learned to do. You know, there will be 3 locked doors instead of just 1 locked door, right? But they also have different puzzle types within the same goal. You know, you still have the same eventual goal to like get through all the locked doors and progress to the next section, but there are new challenges that arise. So it's greater in intensity, or complexity within the specific puzzle type you've already become familiar with, but they add new types of puzzles on top of it, right? So it's increasing in intensity and also kind.
Yeah, the novelty, the rate of fresh novelty is fantastic in this game. And like I think I said earlier, like it does not linger on any one mechanic too long. It's like, hey, this is the first level that you're using the electrical wire. Zip zap. All right, you did it. Great job. All right, 2 more levels of that. And then guess what? We're going to introduce the like circuit breaker mechanic. And then 2 levels after that, okay, we're introducing this. It's not like that short per se, but I don't think I ever went longer than like 4, maybe 6 levels of doing just the same thing. They like have you do a mechanic enough to just make you familiar with it, make you maybe want more of it, and then add in a new mechanic. And the other mechanics then become like more of a footnote to the newer mechanic, but still building upon it in interesting ways, which I think really helped the pacing a lot. Like we never really felt like, man, another fucking electrical wire. It was like, oh shoot, now we're doing the spray paint with the electrical wire. I'm very intrigued to see how this actually like works together. What are the rules of this world now that these new variables have been introduced and they're allowed to play with each other?
These guys are geniuses, man. Like, this, seriously, the ways that they're thinking, I mean, they're thinking, you know, horizontally and vertically at the same time. And it's not that long of a game. You know, I watched a walkthrough of it just to see what it would be like for someone to like kind of golden path this. And it was like under 2 hours. It took me way longer than that. It took me like probably at least twice as long. I found myself seriously challenged by this. You know, and I loved it. I was never frustrated because like you said, they do incorporate novelty frequently. You know, new mechanics are added. So you don't really get bored. And I know that it's so well designed that like when I'm not figuring something out right away, I'm like, this is on me. Like, these guys are good. These guys know what they're doing. You know, this is an impeccable level, and it's on me to like place the level in a way that makes the little icon guy, you know, get to the other side. I was just so impressed the entire time. I was just like, as I got deeper into the game, I was just more and more like floored by the skill that they were exhibiting in this game. But you want to talk about the end? Because the end is really like the most jaw-dropping puzzle
yes,
moment.
Yeah. I want to talk about the end, but...
Stop listening if you haven't played this game and want to, because...
Full spoilers alert. We are getting into the spoiler grotto. I'm going to give Spoiler Town a different name like every time. We are going into the grotto of spoilers now. Get comfortable. So going back to what you said about the sign person, I don't know what we want to call it. Maybe we call it, well, I don't want to call the sign person the pedestrian, because I think the pedestrian is a very explicit character. And the sign person, I thought that like their journey, I didn't have any questions about their journey except for like, where is this all going? Like, there was no other information needed. It wasn't like Sign Man is looking for Sign Woman. It wasn't like, oh, the city is in obvious disarray. It's a mundane city. Like, everything is in order. Things are fine. But, like...
Yeah, he has no personality. He has no aims. He has no goal. It's just your goal to get...
I was just like, why are we kind of like... It's almost like Baby's Day Out. Like, I'm like, where are we going to go next? Why are we going to all these places? And just, if anything, like part of the pull to me was like actually like really wanting to see what the next environment was going to be, because also there was just kind of like there was a real beauty to it. Like, I don't think it's a super high fidelity game, but like the backgrounds, especially the neon skyscrapers, like I really liked that area. But now that we've acknowledged that, you know, he's going on this journey through different sections of the city, different street signs, we can like get towards the end where, you know, we've put together all the components of the Game Boy, and now we like see this like mechanic of like, oh, hey, you know, drop into the Game Boy, drop into the portal in the middle, press this button, and boom. Like, you're in a first person human body, you're holding the Game Boy, you can walk around. You're no longer in a 2D platformer. And I think you were watching me stream at that moment, and I was audibly going, what the fuck? Like, are you serious? The whole reaction there was like, this is great. This is like the next level of like, oh yeah, this is why I've been zooming out. Maybe this is why I've been able to move street signs around. Maybe I haven't just been this random like disembodied entity shifting things around. But not only that, we are now free of the 2D plane. Like, we thought we were free of the 2D plane when we would like zoom out and rearrange the puzzle pieces and do the spray paint and whatnot. But no, you actually now became a 3D entity. You were able to walk in all directions. You were able to look up, down, and wherever you wanted, behind you. And that was like such a fucking great like twist. It was like just so good. And I want you to talk about like the level that immediately comes with that ability to be able to walk around, because I know you liked it, but you got stuck on it for a fair bit, I think you were telling me.
I did. I wasn't looking at like the lines that were telegraphed, so there was I don't want to get into it too deeply. It's not that big of a deal, but I kind of think of this as a shift in point of view. That's kind of like the literary equivalent. I think it was kind of going from third person to first person point of view, but it was like low key in first person the whole time, and you just didn't know, because of the syntax or something. But so basically, it's like you said, the fact that you were manipulating the signs, you were a person manipulating the signs the whole time. You just kind of didn't know that, right? And that's where the story really is. It's not about the little guy who's trying to navigate across.
The little guy is not the pedestrian. You are the pedestrian.
Right, yes.
Or the human that you control.
That you're controlling is the pedestrian, and the human being that you're controlling is controlling the little icon. And that is just, it was such a turn, seeing that there was a person behind this the whole time. You have a hand, like it's insane. You would never have guessed. I don't think, and the title didn't make any sense until that point. Because of course the guy on the sign isn't the pedestrian, maybe like pedestrian crossing, or something like that, but it makes more sense that you're a person who's traveling through the city and you need adequate signage in order to be able to traverse the city.
Yeah, and something that the game felt like, again, going back to you talking about how there wasn't much emphasis on narrative here, it felt kind of like a daydream, like almost this fantasy is happening as we're going through like bits of the city. And because it's so focused on the mechanics and it's just using this like icon that we're all familiar with, we sort of just think it's all about the mechanics. Like, oh, okay, this has like a cute background and things like that. But no, it's telling a story like that entire time. It just doesn't connect that most important dot till the near end, where it more or less is kind of a daydream to some extent, where this guy is like doing his commute. Like, I don't know exactly what their job is or whatever, but we know he's fantasizing in a warehouse. They're fantasizing maybe through the sewers. They're getting on subways above ground and below ground to go to the next part of their workday. And actually, we do find out what their daily schedule is, or their weekly schedule rather, on their fridge. When you solve that skyscraper puzzle and later on finally manage to get into the pedestrian's apartment, you see all these notes and stuff, and I took my time in that place. Like, I wanted to get everything I could. I went full game theory, freaking Matt Pat on it, and was like, oh shit, here's the note on the wall. Monday was this level, Tuesday was this level, Wednesday was this level, and the person has, I guess, a bunch of odd jobs or something like that, and I was like, this is perfect, because when I was playing through it, it felt kind of like a daydream, and I could see it totally being this pedestrian's daydreaming throughout what they might feel is like an unsatisfying, like, weekly cycle. And eventually that's leading them to like getting this little Game Boy man. But then there's like this bigger sort of like sci-fi or fantastical element to it. Not entirely sure there. Would like some of that explained to me. But like, apparently this guy had been working on portals. I'm not sure if that was like actually the case, or if maybe like they weren't like with all within their right mind. So potential different interpretations there. But the idea, I guess, was like, he was going through this whole thing. He's doing his daydreaming. The daydreaming is the platforming and like messing with the spray paint. And who knows, maybe the spray paint thing was actually speaking on like the fact that at nighttime he would go and like do some tagging around the city. Potentially, who knows? But to kind of see it be like, oh, the pedestrian is a person, and they have a messy apartment. There's some weird Einstein shit going on, and I see the brick wall that's just like behind a door for no reason, and I'm like, that brick wall's not going to be a brick wall, is it? They're going to do the sign thing. Like, I saw that shit coming. I was like, I'm going to connect two signs or something. And that brick wall, now I am in the sign, but I am a man. I am the pedestrian. I'm in the 3D world, but they're going to make me do the fucking sign thing to open the 3D world to another world. And then like that actually happened. And I was like, I love this game. I'm ready. I can ascend.
Where does it end? Do you go on a boat? Is that right?
Yeah, you open up this portal. You open up this portal in your apartment, and it leads to like this beautiful, endless ocean and a dock. And funny enough, there is like one little gate that you need to go back to the 2D sign to open up, and then it opens up, and you've already opened up a portal to another weird dimension, and you see notes about the maths he's doing and the dimension and whatever. And then, yeah, you just go on this boat, and the boat has a rope. Like, there seems to be also, along with this endless ocean, there's like a rope, if I recall correctly, that like the boat is sort of following, and you don't know to where, but you sort of know that this guy has been here before, and potentially he's like going to explore it, but now he's going to explore it with the little sign man. And I don't know what all that is supposed to mean, but like that was just so freaking cool.
Yeah, the game does not answer questions. It really leaves a lot open-ended. It's you know, like when you get into his apartment, and you're only there for, you know, like you could be there for a minute and a half.
A couple of moments, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of detail, you know, like he is a fully fleshed out person in the minds of the writers, right? Like there's no dialogue, but like you said, he has a schedule, right? He has like this, like,
it almost felt like this guy could have been the designer of the game themselves, like, or not necessarily the game, but this guy was designing the levels. Like we could see the post-it notes and various drawings of like the mechanics that got introduced, and even like some of the like the chunks of level segments that we had seen.
It reminds me of Super Hot VR. Where like you put on a helmet, you know, you're like in that room where, you know, it's like insert the floppy disk, and it's kind of just like this like messy like laboratory / office type area, you know, and you're clearly like manufacturing this experience, and you know, so it's like science fiction realism or something, you know, it's like our ordinary world, but then there's just like kind of like a little sci-fi twist that they put on it.
God, this game was so good, and
yeah, we can't do it justice.
I wouldn't even call it short and sweet, and yeah, I don't think describing it in any amount of detail is going to do it justice. If anything, I feel like people should be playing the game before listening to this episode, because it's such a good game to go in blind, because of all these just like big revelation moments. And I think the only game that probably has that as of more recently is that card game Inscription, which we won't get too much into because this is about the Pedestrian, but people love that sudden twist, even more so than a narrative twist, something that is like wholly unexpected that just changes the game in like such a large way. And the Pedestrian has that. And part of the curse of having that is that people feel inclined not to tell you the twist, which is what would probably maybe pull you. And thus, I sleep on the Pedestrian for a very long time. It was on my Steam wish list for like years after seeing the trailer. And then boom, it hits Game Pass. And even then, like it took you playing it and being like, oh my God, you gotta play it for me to finally like reinstall it, and then like actually take the leap. And also I had like a 3-day weekend and just wanted something, you know, something to play. And I'm so glad I played that game. Like I almost wish I could like take the Men in Black pen and just beep, like erase the Pedestrian part of my mind so I could play it again.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like what game would you replay for the first time if you could?
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on that we didn't speak about with the Pedestrian? We've been gushing about it a whole bunch. We definitely gave a lot of gameplay explanation of it, and then we went in on the ending. But was there anything else that like really stood out to you compared to like other games?
I don't know if this is like insightful, you know, but I was thinking if I was going to teach like a course in level design, this would absolutely be a required reading. You know, like that's how important this game is. It's novel. There's nothing competing with it. This could birth a whole genre of games. And, you know, I think really like understanding how seriously innovative and impressive this game is like, you can't underscore it. You know, I mean, this is like anybody who really cares about game design, I think could learn something or have a novel experience playing this game.
I think this is a great game to showcase game design in general. The level design is obviously mostly two-dimensional and that's not directly my forte. I'm more of a 3D man myself. But the way it does marry the 2D and 3D towards the very end is like so freaking good. It just, yeah, overall, this is just like a very well designed game. I would absolutely, like, if I had freshman college game designers being like bright eyed and ready to get into the industry, this is absolutely like one of the games that they need to play, and like give me a 1-pager essay on like, why is this a standout game? Because like for many of the reasons we listed here, like it just does so many things that other games either haven't yet done or haven't done well enough to really like resonate like this. And then to include like such surprises, both gameplay wise and narratively at the end, is just the cherry on top.
Yeah, and I'm realizing as we're talking about this, I keep having that sense that we're like not doing the game justice, and it is almost like self-defeating to try to talk about a game that is doing something that's so new that you really just have to experience. And it reminds me of trying to talk about like a great novel or like a poem or something, where the like TLDR is like, go fucking read it yourself. Like, what do you, like, like there's virtue in learning how to talk about pieces of art, and, to have a critical eye and to, in this like dialectic that we're having, we are each growing by these experiences that we're sharing and thinking about it and challenging ourselves. But for something that's like truly magnificent, like an aesthetic, I don't know if masterpiece is the right word, but I'm tempted to use it. We can't do it. Like we're gonna be bad at it, even as best as we could be. It's a shadow of the game. And if you haven't played it and you made it this far, go play it. Go play it. Go play it.
You've ruined it for yourself. Just go play it.